Hello, welcome to the Trews. I'm Cruella de Vil. Subscribe here, it's not real. We did 2 episodes of the Trews yesterday in an attempt to keep up with Fox News' vile output, but today the unthinkable has happened. Fox News and Nigel Farage have come together in some sort of super idiot conglomerate that could drag down the sum total of human intelligence to a record low. Let's see what happens when whining Hannity meets gin-blossomed Farage.
Next guest says that multiculturalism is in fact to blame for the tragic events last week in France.
It's multiculturalism. What you need is monoculturalism. You want one culture.
Nigel Farage is with us. It's not just France. They have, listen to Greg's report. They have a no-go zone.
They're really into these no-go zones, aren't they? They got a no-go zone.
Police are not allowed. Non-Muslims aren't allowed. That to me is, why would France or any other country allow Muslims that have come into the country to basically take over portions of the country?
I don't understand it. Like, sometimes, it's like so far from the way you see the world, you can't even really understand what they're even saying. There's sort of places not to go, like say when you're at the doctor's, you can't just walk in the bit where the prescriptions are. I mean, the world is full of boundaries and barriers, and like due to the sort of global economic conditions and the kind of friction and tensions that exist in different communities, I mean, like, there's economic reasons, there's all sorts of reasons for division. If you're like a sort of a Mexican peasant boy and you try and walk up and down Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, it's a no-go zone. You better get out of that zone.
That is madness to me.
Yeah, it isn't just France. It's happening right across Europe. We've got no-go zones in most of the big French cities.
I mean, there's a no-go zone here. There's a no-go zone. My top lip's a no-go zone. No neuro information reaches it. That's why I can't move it. He looks like he's turning into the lion out of Wizard of Oz. Put him up. Kick him out. Put him up.
We've been turning a blind eye to preachers of hate that have been coming here from the Middle East and saying things for which the rest of us would be arrested.
Same things for which the rest of us. He said a thing. And it's all about freedom of speech. This whole thing, I thought we were talking about freedom of speech, weren't we? Freedom of some speech.
And for all of these things, we're seeing the law not being applied equally. We're seeing the police forces not actually doing their job.
It's pretty mad, like, that what Nigel Farage is claiming to be advocating is equality. Like, if what you want is equality, if what you want is fairness, that's a two-way dynamic. You're not asking for that. What Nigel Farage wants is a bizarre hegemony and a kind of a return to an imaginary place where we never have really been, which is most like sort of Trumpton. Nigel Farage wants to live there. And I want him to, actually.
We've suffered from moral cowardice. We have, through mass immigration and through not checking the details of those people that have come to our countries, we have allowed big ghettos to develop.
Aren't ghettos, like everywhere, types of ghettos, and aren't they normally as a result of economic conditions? I don't reckon many rich Muslim people go, right, I'm going to give up my fancy mansion and move into the ghetto. Why? Well, there's Sharia law there. I've got to move in there for the Sharia law. People live in enclosed communities with people of a similar background and ideology out of necessity and desperation, quite often. Create a fluid society where the same opportunities are open to everyone and people will just live wherever they're led to economically. That's as a result of an unfair society, not out of a choice. Let us go and create Sharia law in Birmingham City of Sharia law.
And when it comes to confronting tough issues, we run a mile. That is why we're in the mess that we're in. We've been led very badly.
Oh, if only someone else would lead us, Nigel. Yeah, we need someone more assertive with a great big long slug of a top lip to get in charge. You see how Nigel Farage, like all other politicians, and he is the same as them, is using this for political capital.
All right, let's talk about the specific countries. So if there's 750 so-called no-go zones in France and Sharia courts on top of it, what other countries have allowed Muslims that have come into their country to separate and create this independent state and Sharia courts? What other countries?
I hate this collaboration between Farage and Hannity. It's like a sort of a super group of idiots. Why don't we get together and collaborate on something truly stupid? Together at last, whining, nasal Hannity. Gin blossomed, cowardly lion, Farage. Sort of jittery, nervous people posing as fearless. People with no ideas. People that are so selective about information. You've got to take in all of the information to reach proper conclusions. If you contextualise within such narrow parameters, the information you've got at the end of that is useless.
Why would Great Britain, France, Belgium, or any other country, the Netherlands, why would they allow people to come to the country, not assimilate, separate, take their land ostensibly, and then risk even being at war with them when Sharia, if you're coming from a country that you grew up under Sharia, those values directly contradict the values in Western countries? Why would anybody allow that?
Well, Sean, I agree with your sentiments entirely.
I mean, Sean, to be honest, the reason I came on the show is because I agree with you in the first place. It's the reason you had me on. I mean, so in a way, we can't have a very sensible discourse. We can't, for example, start talking about the way that corporations take over territory in nation states. We can't talk about the TTIP, a trade agreement where it'll be impossible for nation states to contradict corporate law. I'm not interested in discussing that. I'm not interested in discussing regulation of the financial industry. I'm not interested in discussing taxing corporations, issues that make much more of an impact, although it is viscerally more impactful when there's a terrible murder conducted by people in the name of an ideology. It's much less cinematic when whole nations are overtaken by a bigger, more dominant ideology, the ideology of capitalism. The philosopher Slavoj Žižek, yeah, that's right, he is a philosopher that talks like a very angry drunk Father Christmas.
Happiness doesn't enter it. You are ready to suffer.
He says this, what Max Horkheimer had said about fascism and capitalism already back in the 1930s, those who do not want to talk critically about capitalism should also keep quiet about fascism, should also be applied to today's fundamentalism. Those who do not want to talk critically about liberal democracy should also keep quiet about religious fundamentalism. I agree with that there's an integral relationship between a kind of listless, disaffected democracy where none of us feel like we have any power, where we have no governing ideology, that people define themselves by their cultural associations. I'm more passionate about West Ham and Morrissey than anything happening in contemporary politics because it doesn't speak to me on a human level. So where I would disagree with Žižek is that I think that it's a spiritual problem that we have, that we need to find a new shared myth as human beings. Our relationship to one another, our relationship to nature has to be promoted as what brings us together.
Do you know something? I gave a speech here today in the European Parliament with the leaders of all the big European parties, and I said this. I said, for us to improve things in the future, first we have to atone and recognise the mistakes of the past.
By that mistakes of the past, does he mean colonialism? Does he mean the war in Iraq? Does he mean the war in Afghanistan? Does he mean the continual droning of villages? Does he mean the failure to truly integrate? Does he mean the failure to have a political system that represents the poor, a political system where people truly have traction, where people truly have purchase? No, I didn't mean that. I meant kick out different coloured people. And gays if you can.
Unbelievable. Nigel, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
That is some true news, true news, true news.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the nose. If the nose was true, I want some trews. Let's have some trews.